Hello fishing friends, and if you're new here, welcome. Today I'm going to go over the fishing menu with you and show you a few little tips and tricks that I've learned on the fishing menu. So, one of the first things I'm going to go over is your watch. Yes, you actually have a watch in the game. If you bring your right arm up and look at your watch, you'll see that it has the date, the time, your battery levels, and all that good stuff. So that's a nice quick way to look to see what time it is while you're in the game. Now, to bring up the menu, what you're going to do is you're going to press your B button, and that will bring up your fishing menu. We're going to start off by going over the tackle, and we're going to go over the rods first. So let's go ahead and show you the different rods. I'm going to click on the rods, and you do have 3 levels of rods. You have C, B, and A, and the rods, as they get progressively better, will give you a little bit better stats. So, as you can see with rod C, your power, action, distance, and durability are quite low, and as you go up to rod A, they get much better. Now let's go over the different settings for the power, action, and distance, and durability. So power, it's how quickly the fish will tire. So when you're reeling them in and you see your fish turn green, that means that it's tired, and then you start to reel in faster. If you have a more powerful rod, it will make it turn green faster. Your action, how quickly you can counter the fish's movements. So when you're pulling against the fish, when it's swimming the opposite direction of where you're pulling, that's countering their movement. The distance, this is how far you can cast, and this is one of the main reasons to get a rod A, because you want to be able to cast out as far as possible, especially when you get out into the ocean and you get into the larger lakes like this. When you bring up your fish finder, you'll see that some of them are quite far out there, and if you have the C, it just won't reach the distance on some of the fish that you're trying to get. And then on the durability, that's how many times you can cast out and reel it back in before your pole decides to break on you, and then you have to go to the store and buy a new one. You can change between freshwater and saltwater by clicking these 2 icons up here. This here, these are waves in the ocean, so that is your saltwater, and then you have a river, and that is your freshwater. Let's go ahead and go back here, and let's go look at the reels. Just like the rods, the reels have C, B, and A, and the same thing. They get better as time goes on, and you get better gear. Now on these, you're going to have tension, drag, line length, and durability. Your tension is how strong the line is. That's for catching those bigger fish and trying to bring them in without your line snapping. Your drag is how well the reel handles a fish swimming away. So if you're reeling in a fish and it's swimming away from you and then it snaps, it could be that you just didn't have a good enough reel. And then your line length is how far a fish can run. When you catch those big fish, you'll see them take off. This is especially seen a lot in the ocean fish. When they take off running, they'll get so far out there and then they will just snap and the fish will run away. It might be because you need a better reel and you need more line length. Now the line length isn't how far you can cast, that's only by the pole. It's just how far the fish will be able to run away. And then your durability, just like the rods, durability will decide how many times you can cast out and reel in before the rod and reel breaks, and you have to replace one or the other. Now let's go over to lure fishing. You have the same C, B, and A, and the same power, action, distance, and durability for those. The only difference is you can change your reels up here. So you have casting rods and spinning rods. I tend to stick with the casting rods. They do cast out much farther than the spinning rods. So that's the main difference between those is how far you can cast. And of course, also with casting rods, they're a little bit better for saltwater. A lot of people use the casting rods for saltwater, but it's totally up to you. You can use either or. You can try them out, see which ones you like the best. Now as far as bait go, you do start off with sea bait, and I believe when the game starts you start off with these top 3. It's been a while, so I can't quite remember, But you will start off with the C bait, and then there's the B bait and the A bait, which is of course where you want to get to. These are the ones that will attract the fish the best. As you can see the attraction over here, when I switch between B and A, you can see that it will attract them a lot better. The range between the three different baits, C, B, and A, doesn't change. All the range is exactly the same. The attraction is usually what changes the most, and you want to have a higher attraction. If you watch my videos and you see them fishing for the epics and the rares, I'll always use the A for the higher attraction. So what happens is when I cast out using a lure or a bait, as soon as the bait hits the water where that fish is at, it will instantly turn red, and I use that for my fly fishing technique. And go watch my epic and rare fishing videos to watch that technique, my fly fishing technique, and you'll see how the line will turn red almost instantly when the bait hits the water. As far as the hook goes, that's how well it will hold on to the fish to keep it from snapping your line and taking off on you. So of course the higher the better the hook. So, but mainly the attraction is what I use A for. And on your lure fishing, similar to the bait, the only difference is you have added a sinking speed. Some of these will sink and some of these will float. For example, you come into here, these don't have a sinking speed. That's because this lure here will only float on the top of the water, and these others will sink. Some of them will sink faster than the others. So if you're trying to get a saltwater or a freshwater fish that's lower in the water, you're going to want to have a lure that sinks down to them. Go back into the float fishing, and let's look at our bobbers. So in the bobbers, you're going to have 5 different bobbers. You're going to have your round bobber, and basically the difference between these is only the drift speed and aesthetics, of course. But mainly you're going to switch between these just for the float speed or the drift speed. So you have your round one here. Round one doesn't drift at all. As soon as it hits the water, it stays right there. Right below that, you have this pencil bobber. Pencil bobber is going to float just a little bit, or drift just a little bit farther. It's going to go out there and it's going to drift just slightly. Then you have your stick bobber. It's going to drift slightly more. Your oval bobber, quite a bit more. And then, of course, your chubby bobber, which will drift very fast. This is a good one to use on the ocean levels. You'll cast out there, you'll cast it out, and then just let it drift across the water and try to get to those fish that are out there. And these are the light up versions. So if you're on a night version of the map, you can use these light up, and then you'll be able to see your bobber out there. But again, these are, buy 1 or 2 of these, and you will lose them. If your line snaps, you'll eventually lose one of your bobbers. I've lost one. And you just come out here and buy another one at the store. All right, speaking of the store, let's go ahead and go into the store. This is where you're going to go when your line breaks or your reel breaks or you lose a bobber, stuff like that. Once it breaks, you just go out here, you click on what you want to buy, you click on it, and you just press buy, as long as you have the funds for it. And this is also where you're going to get the different bait. I wouldn't worry too much about buying a whole bunch of the lower level baits. Once you get higher and higher, that's when you're going to want to start buying these A baits. And those are the ones I buy the most of. And if you go into the lure fishing, again, you're only going to need to buy one lure of the ones that you want. I very rarely lose a lure. So if you lose a lure, you just come out here and buy another one. I wouldn't recommend buying more than one of each type of lure right away. Alright, so let's go ahead and go into the fish menu here. Now this fish menu, what it does is it shows you the fish that are in the location that you're currently fishing in. So these fish are the ones that are available for this specific map. And it will have the epic fish at the very end. And of course it will have your rare fish as well. We'll say rare and epic up here. As you can see, the rare fish doesn't like any live baits or any lures. You'll notice that all of your rare fish will not have a favorite of any live bait or any lure. However, these others will have a favorite. So if you're trying to catch the California roach, I have no idea why you would want to try to catch the California roach unless it's just the one you're missing. But you would want to use a dough ball, a worm, or a spinner. And what I recommend doing is kind of going through these and seeing what the other fish like. And then if you're trying to find something, okay, this one likes a dough ball and this one, you know, likes a minnow. So I usually stick with the lures if it's got a spinner or something like that. Of course, you could use the live baits and use the bobber, but what you do is try to find one that isn't going to be attracted to any of the other fish, and then stick with that lure or bait. For example, let me go ahead and bring up the hard level here, which I already got set there. So let me bring up my rod, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of green out there. That green means that those fish like this specific bait. And as I press my thumbstick to the right, my bait will change, and the different colors of the fish will change. You can see I've only got 2 green ones over there. That means only 2 fish out there like the krill. The other ones, even though they don't like the krill, doesn't mean that they will not bite it. It just means that the green ones will bite it first before the red ones will. And the same with the yellow. If you see a yellow one out there like that, they're going to have a higher chance of biting onto the bait before the red ones do. And the green ones will have a higher chance before the yellow ones do. And those go with the baits that they like. So dough ball, he'll be green with a dough ball and green with a spinner. So that's how you read the fish finder in these baits here. The depths, those you want to pay attention to when you're using lower level C's and B's. You're going to want to fish at a lower depth, so you want to cast out there and let it sink down a little bit. Or in this case, if you're using a bait, you just pick it up and you press your thumbstick down. You can see the line gets longer. Press the thumbstick up, the line gets shorter. Up again, it gets even shorter. So if you're fishing on the top of the water, you're going to want to use short line, midway down, and fishing from the bottom. And then when you're fishing with a lure, you're just going to want to let it sink. That's where that sink comes into play. You're going to want to let it sink down and reel it in slowly if you're fishing from the bottom. And when you're on the top, you can reel it in a little bit faster or use a topwater lure. And then we have the different habitats: river, lakes, and you have ocean. This one happens to be in both habitats. Some of these will only be found in one specific habitat. And it looks like all of these are found in both the habitats. Oh, there we go. So this one's only found in rivers. So, alright. So let's go ahead and go into the settings menu. This is pretty much the same thing that's on the main board in the lodge. It has your different settings. What I mainly use for in-game settings, of course my sound effects and ambient noise, I'll adjust those if I'm recording. But your difficulty is what I change the most. So if you're trying to fish for a specific fish, and let's say you're just not getting any bites off the lures that you're using, or there's a specific fish that you're not finding on the fish finder, what you could do is switch between the difficulties from hard to normal and back to hard, or expert to hard, or normal to expert. You just switch between the 2 difficulties and back to where you were, and then it will recycle all your fish. So let me pick this back up, and we'll look down here at my fish finder. We can see I have 2 small red fish there. Some big green ones here, a couple of yellow ones. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch between my difficulties here. I'm going to go to expert, back to hard, pick that back up, and you can see all the fish have completely changed. Looks like I still got another 2 red ones, but it's a whole brand new pool of fish, and that's how you will switch between different fish pools. So if you aren't finding the fish that you want, just recycle and get a new pool of fish there. Alright, let's go ahead and go into the map. The map's going to allow you to go back to your lodge Lodge A or Lodge B, which is your saltwater lower level. Lodge A is your higher level, where your freshwater aquarium is at. And then you can also cycle through all the different maps that are in the area that you're at. I'm currently playing the United States West DLC, so I'm able to go from 1 through 20 of the US West DLC. Now if I want to go back to the Korean areas, then I do got to go to the lodge, change it on the map to the Korean levels and go fishing there, and then all of these will show up as my Korean levels. And then we have the multiplayers. This is the multiplayer section where if you're connected to a multiplayer server, you do have all the different options up here to invite people, see who's in the room, different options like if you want to ban somebody from the room or see your friends, stuff like that. Get your different notifications. And that's different settings in the multiplayer area. Okay, and last but not least, let's bring up the MP3 player. This is the MP3 player. If you have any music locally stored on your Oculus, you can play some songs from there, or you can click on the browser here and go to youtube.com, music.youtube.com, and play music from there. You can enter your own URL if you want to go to other streaming sites. I highly recommend testing them out. Some work, some don't. But you just enter the URL and go to that site and see if it works. They are constantly doing updates to this browser, so sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I would just highly recommend testing it out, see if it works every once in a while. And of course, you've got the Real VR Fishing fan page. And if you have not joined the Real VR Fishing fan page on Facebook, I highly recommend you going out there and joining that group. It's full of awesome people who are always willing to help, especially when you're in a pinch and you can't catch that last fish. Full of people that are always willing to lend a hand. While you're in here, you can change the brightness. You can make it smaller and bigger. You can go farther away and closer with that. This, you grab that and you can move it around. You can also grab the bar here and move it around. This will hide the bar. To get your bar back, all you got to do is hit that refresh there, and it will bring your bar back. So if you ever lose that bar and you can't figure out how to bring it back, just hit the refresh and it'll bring it back. And then you can close out of that. Okay. And then last but not least, you have the little X over here. That just closes the bar. So, there you go. So there is the fishing menu. I hope this helps a little bit. And if you haven't done so already, please like this video and subscribe. I have noticed that about 89% of my viewers have not subscribed. And if you could please subscribe, that would be a huge help for me. And it would be a huge help for you because you would be able to come out here and watch my tutorials and learn how to catch the fish that you're searching for. So, once again, thanks again. Have a great day. Happy fishing. Bye-bye.